Hi, nerds. I have some old comics for you this. Not quite prime golden age, but 50s, mid 50s, which is that little period, kind of that little dead area. It's 5 years too early for the 1961, Fantastic Four and sweet Stan Lee superhero stories. And then it's about 5 years after, the comics code, sort of pre code horror stuff that's super valuable. So so not big, tens of thousands of dollars comics. These are, $50 comics that are kind of beat up, and so maybe they're not that. But I got them for a great deal off of a friend of mine, her parents, from their basement. So these are their childhood comics. The mom and the dad, both of those comics, and we're going to look at them. But first, I would love it if you would subscribe and comment and like. The reason for that is I've never tried to monetize this channel. I'm not really. I don't care how many followers I have, but now I kind of do because since I've never tried to monetize it, I've just been kind of low key. But Google started putting ads on there on their own, which kind of irks me. And they said that I can't make those decisions about the ads until I have 1,000 subscribers. And so I'm like, by golly, I'm going to try to get to 1,000 subscribers then. So if you could help me out, that'd be great. All right, the view is a little different than we normally do because I ran out of Golden Age bags and boards. So you can judge me if you'd like. I accept that. Should have been better supplied, but here we are. And I don't want to prop these up without bags and boards because they're already, 75 years old and already beat up, so I don't want to get any worse. And this is, I don't know if you can see that, American Comics Group, Unknown Worlds. I was not at all familiar with this title. It's a 10-cent comic. Again, I mentioned we're post comics code, so we're a few years after those pre-code horror comics that got a little gruesome, and those pre-code comics are really going up in price. And so this is kind of that period in between, after the code, but before superheroes came in. But this, at any rate, is a cool cover. This looks like Magazine Entertainment. I wasn't familiar. This is Manhunt number 13. Look at that. The dogs have found him, but he's hanging off the edge. Here is another Justice Traps the Guilty, number 89, another 10 cent. I wasn't familiar with that one either. Now this one I was familiar with. A lot of folks know Strange Adventures. That is a DC. You can see National Comics right there, 10 cent comic featuring the skyscraper that came to life. Here's another DC comic, House of Mystery. That was a pretty well-received DC title. But look at this. An entry for a giant 5,000 prize contest. House of Secrets, a DC here. Wait, it's a talking gorilla. What's going on? And here is Tales of the Unexpected from DC. You won't see any Marvel in this era. GI Combat. Now, a lot of comics during this period, and obviously previous to that, were military themed, coming off of World War II. Patriotism was at an all-time high. And again, the entertainment for so many young kids was comic books, or that was it. Maybe some radio dramas. But they didn't have all the plethora of just stuff coming at them at all times. And these military issues, and that's actually a fantastic, just beautiful cover. Strange Adventures, number 84, 10 cents. Tales of the Unexpected. That's kind of a cool number 6. Would that be, that is not a genie in a bottle. That is the girl in the bottle. That's interesting. Men of War, All-American Men of War. Strange Adventures. We've seen several of these so far.
I wonder if anyone ever won that prize. And you can see these are beat up. You know, they're from the mid-50s, so that's understandable. You're not going to get a 9.0. Kids didn't, you know, they didn't bags and boards were not invented back during this time, so they did not start to bag and board comics until maybe late Bronze Age. You got to see it a little more. Black Hawk, House of Mystery. Here is Mr. District Attorney, and you can see Kathy Schweigert. Those were her comics, and so I mentioned a friend of mine, her mom. These were her comics, and so she wrote her name at the top. Now this is fun. You know, we're moving away from DC back to the American Comics group, which I was not as familiar with. But Forbidden Worlds, that's a fun title. Ventures into the Unknown. Again, this was pre-superhero largely, so you just had kind of sci-fi, fantasy, weird stuff. Jungle stories, war stories, a lot of just genre stuff. Now this is fun. This is a Charlton. So Charlton would go on to make a lot of great comics. And this is a Charlton publication, Out of This World. This is 68 pages for 15 cents. We were still in the 12-cent before we got to, 10-cent before we got to the 12-cent era. Now there are a few more that I actually did have bags and boards for before I ran out, but here we go. Atlas, I mentioned there are no Marvel during this time. There is Atlas, Journey into Unknown Worlds. Stories to Hold You Spellbound, number 30 there. A World of Mystery. The Bugs. Again, 10-cent comics. Now this, we're starting to get to what we recognize as comic fans. Marvel Tales, number 149. Again, this is Atlas, not Marvel, but you can see it's starting to make that transition. The bug has bit the folks at Marvel. Strange Tales. Now this is still an Atlas Strange Tales, number 53. Now Strange Tales, if you would know, during the Silver Age was dominated by Doctor Strange and Nick Fury stories. But before that shift at number 53, this was several years before that turn when Doctor Strange was introduced. Mystical Tales from Atlas. And the final one is Mystery Tales number 45 from Atlas Comics.
All right, some fun 50s comics, and with a little bit of a different perspective because, you know, dummy me ran out of bags and boards, but didn't want to damage them any more than they already were. You know, they're old, and I hope I look that good when I'm that old. So it's a lot of fun. I'm going to look them up and see what's up. I don't know that any of these will go into my personal collection, maybe a few. And most of them, I think I'll put them in the, in the antique shop booth, or maybe throw them on eBay and find them a good home. But just really fun stuff. I love the era, but it's a little bit of a tweener. You know, you kind of want your comics to be maybe a few years earlier when it's pre-code, or even into that World War II era where they just really feel special, or you want them to be just a few years later when they get into, you know, Spider-Man and Fantastic Four, the early 60s when, you know, those comics are tens of thousands of dollars. You know, these are nice comics, and, you know, $30-$40 will buy a nice little piece of comic book history. So if you want to, I'll do more comic videos like this. I try to do them fairly regularly. I have a giant stack of comics that I need to show you yet. So if you want to subscribe and like and comment, I'd appreciate it. Just to follow along, and I'll check you next time. All right, take care, nerds.